Death Ship, or as Prime Video calls it, the Date Ship, seriously, what the heck is up with that? Saw the return of one of the great Twilight Zone directors and several on-screen stars. Based on another short story of his, Richard Matheson also penned his second and final hour-long script for Season 4. Ton of talent involved in this one. But did the space drama deliver where other extended installments failed? In the distant year of 1997, a spacecraft from Earth is on a mission to collect samples from other worlds to determine if they're habitable for colonization. The headstrong Captain Paul Ross and his small crew, consisting of Lieutenants Ted Mason and Mike Carter, land on a planet after Mason spotted a glint on the surface. When they land, the trio see the remains of a crashed spaceship eerily similar to theirs. Upon investigating, they discover the 3 dead bodies inside look a bit familiar. All 3 men have deceased doubles on the ship. In contrast to his panicked crewmates, Captain Ross is determined to find a logical explanation. He has several theories, including a time warp, which leads to an order that keeps the ship grounded indefinitely so they don't crash upon trying to leave. This isn't very popular with Mason and Carter, who say they have people to return to on Earth and can't live on the unnamed planet permanently. With the communication scrambled, there's also no way to let anyone know where they are. Things are further complicated by visions Carter and Mason have. Mike finds himself back home looking for his wife, and Ted reunites with his own family on the side of a serene body of water. What can't be figured out is how these elements tie together with their current situation. Death Ship was the 5th and final episode directed by Don Medford. He started his career in the Zone with Season 1's A Passage for Trumpet, and along the way helmed the very entertaining The Man in the Bottle, along with the disturbing yet poignant Death's Head Revisited. He had a diverse set of episodes and scripts to work with. Adding a dark mystery set in space to his credits further validated his versatility. The look of Death Ship, with the different sets, dynamic lighting setups, and impressive effects, made it stand out from other off-world episodes. Cinematographer Robert Pittick captured many impressive visuals throughout. They do a decent enough job with the split screen and other shots attempting to sell that the same actor was on screen with himself simultaneously. It's not the most seamless effect this time around, as a hard shadow distracts from the illusion, but the camera movement up from the dead Mason character to his live counterpart was ambitious. It goes by so fast that you can't tell it doesn't quite match up unless you're looking for it. While the flying saucer used as the trio's ship is indeed from 1956's Forbidden Planet, all the shots with it were made especially for this episode. Producer Herbert Hirschman supervised the effect shots himself and gave the production a bigger budget than usual to convincingly pull off the material. They look great and were a highlight of the installment, so money well spent. Combined with a few background paintings across the runtime, a lot was done from an art direction perspective to keep the situation feeling as tangible as possible. I love those recliners they use in the control room. The body imprints are just great. The costumes also borrow the uniform shirts from Forbidden Planet, and apparently everyone on Earth dressed in metallic clothing in 1997. Not too far off, I guess. The music here is from the CBS library and other TZ episodes, but a few moments really nailed the tone. Like when they go inside the identical ship and Jerry Goldsmith's main theme from Back There is playing. That ominous feeling it created in its original story is matched just as well in this episode. When Mason wakes up to find his wife and daughter, some music from Bernard Herrmann's Walking Distance score is used, and it also enhances the moment. So good. That's still some of my favorite music from the whole show. Reteaming with director Don Medford was Jack Klugman in his 3rd Zone appearance. The pair had worked together on A Passage for Trumpet, where Klugman delivered an excellent performance and a much more sentimental episode. A Game of Pool was another classic for the actor to sink his teeth into the previous season. His role in Death Ship was not only a departure for him scenically, but Captain Ross was very different from the other characters he played on this show. Ross is a real jerk, showing almost none of the vulnerability or emotion that made Klugman's other work shine.
Try the radionic signal. Captain, it's not going
Will
to
you
work.
do what I tell you once?
He does well in the part, but I think most fans remember him more for his other roles. Also returning from A Passage for Trumpet was Mary Webster. She had a memorable scene with Klugman at the end of that episode and gets a more ethereal romantic sequence here. This time, she plays Ross Martin's character's wife, Ruth. That scene is possibly the best in these 52 minutes. I love how the mood shifts once she notices Captain Ross is there.
Ted, why is he here?
Speaking of Ross Martin, he's just awesome. The guy really gave his all in this performance, and it was good to see him make a return after Season 1's The Four of Us Are Dying. Martin had a lot more room to flex his acting muscles playing Mason than he did in his previous appearance. His interaction with his character's daughter means even more when you find out what's really going on, but even not knowing the full context, it's an emotional moment.
Oh, baby, is it you?
What's wrong, Daddy?
Nothing, honey, nothing. I'm just happy to see you, that's all.
Martin was going through a separation from his wife at the time and didn't live close to his daughter. He said in an interview years later that it was easy for him to find the motivation for that scene. He had also worked with that child actress, Tammy Merrihew, on a TV episode a few years prior, so the comfort level and familiarity they shared aided the dramatic exchange. The third lead, Fred Bear, is sort of out of his league. He's not bad, but Klugman and Martin were at the top of their game, leaving Bear to come off much more over the top in his delivery and expressions. Everything about his acting is big, from how he emotes to even how he runs in his sequence back on Earth. Those few minutes on screen are by far his best work here, by the way. All three actors had to simulate the G-force the characters felt when taking off in the ship at one point, and it looks weird. A simple shake of the camera could have solved this. Shooting it straight on made it look like they were making funny faces in the mirror. This was Richard Matheson's final of only 2 Season 4 episodes. It's much better than his previous, Mute, and made use of the extended runtime, going in deeper on the characters instead of just padding it out with superfluous scenes. Matheson had to stretch out his short stories, so extra credit to him for pulling that off by making it feel natural. At the time, Matheson wanted to mix genres. Death Ship ended up being a combination of sci-fi and horror. He compared the explorers seeing themselves in the darkened, destroyed ship to a haunted house. Matheson had much success across his long writing career experimenting with different genres, and this was no exception. After snapping Carter out of his vision of home, where the lieutenant only finds a telegram describing his own death, Ross notices that Mason has gone missing. In the middle of a reunion with his wife and daughter, the captain shows up to violently drag his subordinate back to the ship. It's then revealed that Mason's wife and daughter died in a car crash some time ago.
The wife and daughter of space pilot Ted Mason died early this morning on the car that... You weren't there. They're dead. You're alive.
Ross thinks aliens on this planet have mind-controlling powers that cause the men to hallucinate. If they stay there, they can't report back to Earth and possibly colonize their planet. After some debate, the captain orders they take off, and the trio are successful at re-entering space. However, knowing he was right, Ross immediately decides to return so they can fulfill their mission and collect the samples. Following a fight for the controls, they land back on the surface to discover that the ship is still there. Mason then finally has a realization.
We're dead, Paul. Let us die.
I don't accept it! We're gonna go over it again until I find the answer!
The first scene then runs again, as it's plain to see Ross's iron will has held not only himself, but his crew from accepting their fates. They did die on that ship. Carter's vision of his death telegram was real, and Mason actually did briefly join his family in the afterlife. Yet, they are doomed to replay the incident in an endless loop with the captain controlling the narrative. They're all trapped on a death ship, with no escape. Pretty good stuff. It's honestly a little better than I remembered, with Medford's direction, Pitak's cinematography, some great spaceship effects, and Ross Martin's performance pulling us through a solid sci-fi mystery from Richard Matheson. The twist didn't go down the simple route and even had Captain Ross calling out the other possible story reveals to throw us off. It's well worth your time and has some strong rewatchability once you know what's actually playing out. I wouldn't consider it a top-tier installment, but it feels unique enough to recommend, and the hard work the production team gave us is admirable. Hop aboard the Death Ship, everyone! Maybe the Date Ship is a more digestible title. Just not in the Twilight Zone.
Picture of a latter-day Flying Dutchman sailing into the Twilight Zone.